Good morrow, fellow humans. My name is Sean and I am obsessed with infinity. So join me as I attempt to unpick the infinities of what is.
What is the structure of time? Beyond our perspective, time may have many potential structures, or no structure at all. Some have said that the past, present and future are all equally valid in reality, some just the past and present, and others say that the present is the only real truth. So let us begin with these. Firstly, we have eternalism, which for all intents and purposes is the same as the block universe theory discussed across the last few chapters. Eternalism, closely associated with a theory of time called Presentism, claims that time is omnipresent. In this model, the past, present and future all merge under one timeless totality, and it is through this four-dimensional slab of unmoving time and space that our frame of consciousness and the physical dynamics of entropy find their uniquely linear paths. In this model, consciousness may be linear, but our fundamental physicality is like the worm in the apple. Exdurantism is again similar, though instead of imagining the identity of objects and events as passing through the timeless block universe, this theory sees the flow of time as being broken into a series of frames or stages, akin to frames of film, static, interconnected, non-temporal moments. Then there is the so-called growing block universe theory, which again claims the existence of an objectively real past, but does away with the objectively real future. In this case, the present acts like a temporal wavefront of the past. In this model, there is no such thing as a future for a present to eternally crash into, only an evolving present, forever shedding layers into a growing past, just as a coral sea grows upon the bones of bygone reefs. And finally, we have Presentism, the claim that there is only this one moment. Here, the past and future are no more than constructs of human creativity. In contrast to the four-dimensional Presentism, the identity of objects and events become constricted to a three-dimensional endurantism where objects may be spread out through space via their extended parts, but not spread out in time. Now is all there is. It's hard to know which of these conceptual frames are worth subscribing to, as each has its benefits and pitfalls. Instinctively, we may feel like presentism is the most sensible option, since we know that the past was once the present and that those structures and events that once made up that present are no longer in the same order. That present became this present. Likewise, the future may be considered predictable through some element of universal determinism, but this doesn't force us to believe that the future has to literally exist before it too becomes the present. Though all this leaves us with is the present. So we must therefore ask, what is the structure of this present? We may initially think of it as being an instant, a mere moment, perhaps durationless to an infinite degree. But if this is the case, how does change occur? Since change requires duration. If the present is an infinitely short durationless moment, like a living frame, let's say, how does one instant become another? We are thus forced to offer our description of the present some extended temporal dimension, some direction through which it can evolve and become. And atop this initial noodle scratcher, do we also have to consider Einstein's relativistic view of time, which only ever allows us to appreciate a present moment from within a small window of causality. In other words, an individual's shared present is limited in size by the speed of light. Anything that falls outside of this cone of causality cannot be said to share any relative nowness at all. What this means is that if the speed of light is exactly 299,792,458 metres per second, and it is, then at the resolution of 1 second increments, now is everything within a 299,792,458 metre radius of the person asking, what time is it? Within smaller increments of time, however, that radius shrinks. For example, our unconscious reaction time is approximately 300 milliseconds. So within the time it takes for our awareness to become reactive, light will have travelled only 89,801 kilometres, or 55,800 miles. Which means that from our personal perspective, now has a radius that stretches 3/4 of the way to the moon. Whilst at the resolution of a mere nanosecond, now can only be considered within less than an arm's length. Thus the present, if even there is such a thing, appears to be a solely localized event. Add to that the varied speeds of time, where a split second on Earth may be the relative equivalent to centuries passed on some distant planet, and we start to see why, beyond the cone of causality, asking what time it is next to meaningless. So, if the present is local, but time is universal, it follows that a presentist view must be missing some piece of the puzzle, some angle that's not being fully appreciated. It may be very accurate to state that there is only this one moment. I, for one, get very passionate about the type of thinking that this sentiment conjures. But it is still a metaphorical description. There is a certain element of poetry to this sentiment that assumes a private acknowledgement of the vastness of what a moment is. So again, we must be cautious with our metaphors, because just like it was with the extra conceptual dimension that I proposed as necessary for understanding infinite mathematical sets or big bangs, there is yet another hidden dimension here that needs to be verbalized. This being the one that separates Newtonian from Einsteinian spacetime. Because even though Einsteinian spacetime warps in some dimension that Newton's doesn't, both are still described as being four-dimensional structures, being the three spatial and one temporal. So what then is Einstein's extra dimension of time? Essentially, if you're made of ordinary matter, it's the axis between gravity, or space-time curvature, and momentum, though nowhere within the three spatial or one temporal dimensional axis is this offered. So if we can move through time and space at angles that were not previously allowed in Newton's world, is it perhaps more accurate to say that Einstein's world is a five-dimensional one? Whether yes or no, the problem still stands. We must name the invisible if it is to become seen. And these aren't easy things to see. But this is why, in the attempt to fill in these blanks, many turn back to the eternalist point of view, imagining a block universe that not only contains time but persists beyond it. All well and good, but just like a poorly repaired rickety old boat, one plug here might cause another leak there. The reason eternalist theories of time can feel so unsettling is not simply due to their underlying unintuitiveness. It's also to do with an issue of fate and predetermined destiny. Because with a block universe comes the destruction of free will. Given this, it may appear surprising how popular this metaphysical framework is among physicists. But the reason for such popularity is that it ties in nicely with the apparent rationality of superdeterminism. A superdeterministic worldview claims that the laws governing reality are infinitely causal. Things don't just happen as a result of chaotic chance, because if they did, all science would ultimately be meaningless. Things happen as a result of determinable causes and effects. One cause in, one effect out. But suppose we choose to take on this belief that the universe is governed by such strict universal laws as Einstein did. In that case, we must also confront the realization that we too are governed by these same laws, meaning that every thought, action and moment of our lives that ever has or ever will be was predetermined from the moment that the universe sprang into existence. A fact that, unfortunately, also destroys the viability of science as a truth-seeking practice, given that we were always going to discover what we discovered and never a cent more, no matter how hard we try. But as the self-made entities we are, we're not too fond of being told that we have no control over our choices. For starters, it would wreak havoc on our legal institutions. And more importantly, we just don't like it. Some alternate theories, such as the growing block universe, have attempted to counter this determinism by leaning into the more probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, envisioning a reality where chaos is an inbuilt component of nature, thus allowing the future to be open-ended. For as the secrets of the very small have continued to unfold over the last century, the discoveries made have been of a world far less definitive. A picture of reality where the atoms that make up the universe can never be pinned down to either a location or a speed at the same time. A world where free will might be shaped not by deterministic causes and effects, but by non-ultimate probabilities, describing a future that bubbles up ahead of us like a cloud of yeses, nos and maybes, where our experienced 4D reality only takes shape as the present unfolds. So it is here that we are going to play for a while, upon this our next shoreline of knowledge. And next week, we'll try to visualise what this inquiry is hinting at via a little thought experiment concerning my wife's late granduncle, veteran Jim Lowe, and his own tale of decisive action.
Good morrow, fellow humans. So glad to have you again once more and to spend this time with you. Just wanted to say thank you for all of your comments, and for those new subscribers or the people who have just joined us recently, just wanted to say firstly welcome, but secondly, the Infinite Now project is a broader narrative. So might I suggest that you take some time to go over to our podcast, which can be streamed from any podcast platform, or you can simply go over to our channel page, and on the channel page there is a full chapters playlist which will enable you to catch up to where we're up to and experience the Infinite Now story in much more of an audiobook fashion. And the benefit of that is you'll understand the context of why we're talking about what we're talking about in each week. This month is going to be a two-parter, which means that next week is going to be an extended episode. I just didn't want to interrupt the thought that gets unfolded in that episode, but it does mean that we've got an extra week up our sleeve the following week, so we'll see what we do with that. Apart from that, much love, and hope you all have a lovely week. All right, bye.